And we're live.
Yep.
Why don't you kick things off?
Hey everybody, this is Matt and Anaria running another one of our post-Mandalorian episode chat sessions where we are going to play a little bit of SWTOR for background and have a chat about the episode of The Mandalorian that has just screened. So throw up your comments in the Twitch chat there. We'll read them as they tick over and have a bit of a conversation about what we just saw. Bit of a different setting this time around because we have just seen the finale of the whole season. Quite a big deal, quite a lot going on, and a few surprises, I think.
Yep, plenty of surprises. So today I am going to be playing my mercenary bounty hunter Nyridia, wearing the Shea Vizsla gear. Very classic, very Mandalorian. Just a solo run today so we can think about all the amazing developments from that episode.
Just running a slightly different tech setup for just for a variety of reasons, but we'll get back to our normal configuration next week. But we're going to focus on keeping an eye on chat this time around. So we've got one person filling the screen with some Mandalorian goodness while we talk about Mandalorian goodness in the chat.
Yep. So I'll be relying on Tombs to keep an eye on the chat, so feel free to post up any comments and questions and just general excitedness from that episode. And I'll get started on Tatooine.
Tatooine, good place to start.
Yep.
Hey Jalari, hello there. Hey Hydro Man, yes indeed, that was so good. It started off, well, I think it kicked off pretty cool seeing the Lander class shuttle. That got me excited from the get-go, but I think it was a little bit of a slow burn to start with, and then a ton of action in the middle without necessarily progressing the story apart from moving us closer and closer to the rescue, as the title implied. It's quite good to see that title done, to be honest, after the title of the previous of the episode entitled "The Tragedy," seeing this one entitled "The Rescue." A little bit of a more of a hopeful start to it all.
It was a bit exciting, considering it could have ended on a knew what to expect sort of heading into it, so that was exciting. And a longer episode than some of the others, so that's always like just
hey, we'll talk about the length in a second because that was really interesting. Hydro Man just talking in chat there made the prediction a couple of weeks ago. The timing all made sense. Yeah, it did. I mean, the overlap for the timelines for the setup of Jedi Academy and so forth, and who's alive and who's available at this point in time. That was obviously the big reveal, and we kind of got the feel as the fighting was going on that something was going to happen. Someone else was going to turn up to help them out. That was the kind of vibe that I kind of really felt was building, and had a strong anticipation as to who it would be and how far they'd go with the story and how deep they'd cross this over with other Star Wars material, but they went all the way there, didn't they?
Like, when that X-Wing turned up, I was like, is this going to be like who I think it is? Or is it a bit of a misdirect?
But we saw the lightsaber. Obviously it was a cloaked figure. It could have been anyone at that point, but once you could see the boots, the gloved right hand, the lightsaber was absolutely a giveaway. Hey, Johnny Cage, that was for awesome indeed. The lightsaber was, there's no way that they'd fake us out with that lightsaber, I don't think. All the other elements of the costume matched up with what he was wearing at the end of Return of the Jedi, so it's classic Jedi outfit. And then the face reveal.
Yeah.
that epic emotional scene, I guess. Grogu's been wanting to see Pedro Pascal's face for a while, I think.
Yeah. As we all are. But so I was taking a few notes off to the side because I know that it was going to be an episode full of like so much to try and absorb all at once. So I'm just going to have a quick look at my notes while I take down some Tuskens.
Yeah, obviously Luke was CGI. His voice is cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I was sitting on the edge of my seat, holding my breath for that face reveal.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the budget's not quite what they might have for a blockbuster movie, so you know, we can probably concede that it may have been, you know, 99% perfect, not 101% perfect, but I don't care. He was there, and
Yeah.
that was part of the story, and it was just
Oh man,
necessary.
how long has Mark Hamill been keeping that secret?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So you know, I'm as far as how I enjoyed that, I was really just focusing on the way that story unfolded and what that reveal actually means, rather than nitpicking. You know, the detail of the CGI. Sure, I think they could have possibly fine-tuned the timing of the lip sync a tiny bit, but just a tiny bit, and I'm not going to stress about that. It's such a big deal. Sebastian Stan, the player, with a bit of CGI on top. Yeah, well, they obviously must have had someone as a body double, but
Yeah.
to some extent. But yeah, Mark Hamill's voice, Mark Hamill in the credits.
It's his likeness.
Yeah, that's just too much.
Like, you know, like Carrie in Rogue One.
Lots of good fight scenes all the way through that. Some interesting use of different weaponry.
Yes.
Right from the get-go with Bobba's face-off.
Oh man, I'm
and fight with Sasha Banks. And the use of the jetpacks as an extra.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I'm looking at my notes. They've called the scientist a clone engineer.
Yeah.
Specifically, and I couldn't remember if they had pointed that out before, whether he was a scientist, but they specifically said clone engineer, and all they wanted was his, well, it might have been a misdirect, but...
yeah, we assumed that it was medical or biotech or something like that, but throwing the word clone into the mix there was definitely interesting.
Yeah. With Moff
So I also found, just
about...
talking of clones, I found the interaction between
yes.
Katie Sackhoff and Tim as Boba quite interesting, because she didn't, I don't think she necessarily pointed him out as Boba Fett. She just knew that he was a clone.
Yeah, she fixated on the voice.
Yeah.
If she is, you know, obviously with the Clone Wars, she would have been aware of what the clones did at the end of that with Order 66. So I guess she's not too fond of them as a whole.
Yeah, so there's a lot of...
She obviously has mixed feelings about him being a Mandalorian because he's a clone.
Yeah, well, at that point where we had all of them in the room together, I thought it was quite cool, because what they've been building to along the way is the fact that the Mandalorian culture isn't monolithic. There's lots of different ways to be a Mandalorian, and at that point we had Din Djarin, who's, you know, very strict about his interpretation of Mandalorian law, even though he's a foundling, so not a natural-born Mandalorian, so to speak. We had Boba Fett, who's pretty loosely associated with Mandalorian culture, but hangs on strongly to the armor that he inherited from Jango. And then Katie Sackhoff as Bo-Katan, and again, their interpretation where the wearing of the helmet's not quite as strict, and
the way that she sticks to the way that they must inherit the Darksaber.
Yeah, the leadership hierarchy and that aspect of the culture.
Yeah.
The end credit scene. Hey, Tashu, good to see you back. I mean,
that was pretty cool.
When the credits rolled,
I was pausing the credits because I wanted to see, you know, all the actors and all the people involved.
I took a look at the timer, and it was like 39 minutes out of 46 minutes. I thought, no way is that going to be
just
the entire
credits.
Length of the credits. Let's just wait and see where this is going. And then they panned open on Jabba's Palace, Jabba's X Palace, whatever you want to call it. It's no longer Jabba's Palace. But obviously,
Bib Fortuna's palace.
Briefly, or for the last few years, but no longer.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting how he converted Jabba's dais into his own throne dais there. Still had the sort of gargoyles along the front and so forth, but he put a humanoid type throne atop it.
Yeah, because I noticed Matthew Wood in the credits and wasn't fast enough to spot who he was credited as. But I wonder, I have to have a look back and see whether he was Bib Fortuna, because he played Bib Fortuna in episode 1.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a whole backstory there. Obviously, Bib Fortuna's, who was previously Jabba's major domo, has taken over that sort of crime lord gangster type role for a period of time. We didn't get to see a lot of it on screen because his role in this episode was fairly short-lived. There were a few cool aspects to it, though. I see he still had the staff that the vintage action figure version had from back in 1983. That was a cool touch. I thought the entrance of Fennec Shand Ming Na Wen was kind of cool because it was very much echoing Luke's entrance to Jabba's palace back in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, yeah.
But
The
they didn't
Gamorrean
reveal her
guards at the
face straight away.
start.
Yep.
That was cool.
Sounds like we're talking a bit more about the end credit scene.
Yeah.
But that was the big deal because, well, obviously they just only a week or so ago now they gave us the layout of all the upcoming titles for Star Wars TV and feature films, but they conspicuously left out Boba Fett at that point in time.
Even though there were a lot of rumors about that.
Tocho saying when I saw the X-Wing dock, and then I saw the green saber. Yep, called it. So a few episodes back, we've had a bit of a conversation about who could have shown up, whether it would be Luke or one of the other Jedi that are potentially floating around, Ezra.
Yeah, Ezra was one that was hinted at a lot. Well, speculated a lot.
So
online.
a few people in the audience hung their hats on Luke, and I'm glad they were right.
Yeah,
I
wasn't sure if they would go that big. Like I wanted it to be Luke, but yeah,
my vote early on. To be honest, I certainly hoped to see something, but it was huge. I wasn't expecting them to go necessarily that big either, but they did.
Yeah, it was like seeing
still wanted to see it be Mace Windu. Yeah, we talked about that before,
Yeah.
and that would have been cool.
Yeah, like it had like that sort of that emotional hit, like seeing Carrie at the end of Rogue One. We'd already seen Tarkin, and then seeing her at the end was just like, whoa. So I'm excited that Luke got his own kind of moment to echo that.
I think it's fitting, considering how significant and powerful the separation of Grogu and Din Djarin was.
Yeah, it had to be somebody
that
the audience knows and would feel happy with him going off with.
Yeah.
So that's fine. If some random shows up, we're like, we don't know who this is.
So Johnny Cage asking where was Grogu during the last trilogy? Yeah, obviously, this raises all sorts of open-ended story potentials and story arcs that may get touched on in other media somewhere along the line. It's implying that we're not going to see Baby Yoda in the next season, which we know is on its way. So who knows what they're going to do with the next season of The Mandalorian. I'd be interested to hear what people would actually want to see from it.
Yeah. Obviously, they probably wrote, when they started The Mandalorian, they would have, this must have been written as a 2-season story arc.
Yeah.
Because of the way that the first one finished and this one sort of wrapped it up. We did end up on quite of a cliffhanger. We saw Bo-Katan getting shot. Moff Gideon is still alive, I'm pretty sure.
Moff Gideon, yeah.
And we've got the dilemma of the Darksaber ownership that wasn't resolved. But yeah, I guess they were waiting to see how successful this series would be. And now they've got free reign to, are we going to go back to Mandalore?
Yeah, well,
and follow this whole Darksaber story arc?
Just looking at Chad. So obviously the Luke taking Grogu does complicate the established canon, but I'm sure that's resolvable. I don't think it's a deal breaker.
Unless it's the unthinkable and he got massacred.
Well, in the sequel era, yeah. Or
with the Jedi
maybe he's just hiding out on Dagobah. Talking about next season, what a set up conflict within the Mandos. Obviously, yeah, there's a lot going on there. To what extent they'll want to focus on that.
We know that the spin-offs that are already announced formally, we're going to have overlapping stories. So even though they've obviously announced that just in this episode that Boba Fett's going to get his own series, they have the opportunity for him to overlap with this new one as well. So that'll be fun, particularly as they seem to have positioned him in quite a position of power. The whole sort of ye olde overthrow the ruler by killing them and taking their throne. That was kind of fun.
I don't know where they'll go with that. I mean, it's an position for him to be in.
Yeah.
Why does he? I mean, we're going to see a little bit more about Fennec Shand's backstory in the Bad Batch animated series. Ming-Na Wen is returning to voice the character in that.
That's cool.
So we will learn a little bit more about her and what her motivation is and what her history is. But as to why Boba Fett...
She's obviously loyal because she talks about being indebted to him because he basically resurrected her, or at least saved her from death with the sort of cybernetic innards.
Still looking at chat again. Tim is going to be busy. Yeah, he's locked in for
that is just so exciting.
A whole
really,
season,
honestly.
at least. Hopefully, an ongoing series. The Book of Boba Fett. That's a big deal. Tochi saying, "What if Luke missed Yoda so much he took Grogu to Dagobah to be the new Yoda and trained him in secret?" That's the sort of. I mean, he could go to Dagobah. There's places on Dagobah that are strong in the Force and significance there, and they plenty of things for Yoda's. Yoda was able to survive there happily, whether or not Baby Yoda's old enough to survive independently. That's the sort of thing that I kind of expect, that he is kind of unique. He needs to have a slightly more unique story arc than some of the other Jedi Padawans and Jedi trainees. Dagobah does have a dark side nexus. Baby Yoda does need to learn one or two things about impulse control.
Yes. I thought it was interesting that he didn't really get to use the Force as much as he did in the first season.
No. Well, there is the meme going around about the
has Cookie.
Yeah. No, I was almost expecting him to unleash at one point when. In order to be protective of Din Djarin when he was getting, whipped a little bit there by the Dark Troopers, but
that had such a Terminator vibe to me. Those ones.
Yeah, well, especially when he started melting him. I was kind of actually hoping when he set fire to one of them, that we'd see a little bit of an endoskeleton thing going on there underneath the sort of, plastoid face armor and so forth. But yeah, they were pretty brutal and relentless.
Yeah.
I guess we didn't see any resolution to the Thrawn.
No.
Question.
No.
But maybe in Ahsoka's show. Yeah, Scrappy talking in chat there.
Yes.
Ahsoka's show could.
Yes, because they reintroduced him in Rebels.
Overlaps in terms of timelines, and that's probably the best way to do that. To not have the Mandalorian diverge into too many different directions at once.
Yeah. Well, especially big sort of epic galaxy sort of related things. Bounty hunters always sort of work more on the fringe, and that's what we got for a good portion of the first season, where he's just taking bounties and doing what he does. I thought that was interesting with I can't remember if it was Bo-Katan or her associate that said it. It was like, not all Mandalorians are bounty hunters.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's kind of this assumption made for sort of a lot of different Mandalorian characters that they end up being bounty hunters because of their skills. Which, we don't really know what they have been doing.
Yeah.
If they sort of...
Yeah, so just a reminder there, because I forget as well, Sasha Banks' character is called Cosca Reeves. Interesting, I think I actually read somewhere a few weeks back in response to something she said on Twitter that she wasn't going to appear again, so I wasn't actually expecting to see her again, but it was cool to see her paired up with Katie Stackhoff for the epic rescue. Yeah,
I thought it was interesting that, that sequence had the 4 female characters, which was quite cool. I'm really digging the character of Fennec. I think she's really cool.
Yeah, just jumping into chat there, Johnny Cage talking about wanting Jason Isaacs as Thrawn as a a live action version of Thrawn, because there are so many stories that could be talked about that could revolve around Thrawn. So you'd really want a solid and respected actor, someone who can
Although
carry
he
him off.
voiced the Grand Inquisitor.
Yeah. But there have
yeah.
been fan edits of his face out there, I think.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Is Bo-Katan going? This is Scrappy talking. Is Bo going to fight Din, or is Din going to become Mandalore?
Yeah, like he picked it up. Like, is she gonna like relent and go, okay, fair is fair. You got it.
Yeah. He doesn't.
Or he doesn't seem
necessarily
to be.
care.
Yeah.
About that as a.
Because we don't actually know if
he's
he's ever been to Mandalore. If he was rescued during the Clone Wars, then did he ever get the chance to go before we see like the events of the final season with the big siege on Mandalore? He would have been a kid. He probably wouldn't maybe have been taken there.
Yeah.
So he may not have too much loyalty to the actual planet himself. I thought it was, just looking at my notes, that scene where Slave One enters the viewfinder of the Imperials. That was quite sort of imposing shot. And yeah, I don't know. Also, Boba Fett referenced the Empire turning Mandalore to glass.
Yeah.
So that could be really interesting if we actually see them return to the planet in some manner.
Yeah.
You know,
there's
certainly been
stories.
planets that have been sort of obliterated, as it were, from space, but not totally destroyed like Alderaan. So.
It would be nice to have all that canon sort of fairly solidly established and tied together with all the missing gaps. Jumping around a little bit here, I just mentioned that Cosca Reeves was the female Night Owl. What have we got here? Johnny Cage asking what happened to the guy Night Owl. That was Axe Woes. Yeah, he went off the same thing. Who knows?
Yeah, I noticed he wasn't there, but yeah. I almost wondered whether the female character was there to be a red shirt and die in some of those scenes, but it looks like it's her still standing at the end.
Yeah. Oh no, I think they're both standing.
Because
both Night Owls.
I can't remember because I know Moff
yeah,
Gideon sort of unleashed his blaster at her, but
yeah, I think
we assume she's wearing good Beskar.
Yeah, no, I'm 92% sure she got up after that. But just to cover our butts here, we've watched it quickly once and then we jump into this chat.
Yeah.
Historically, we've watched everything back to back, and we will go back and do that pretty soon. But there's always so much detail that we can only commit so much of it to memory the first time around. So. Humorous if we don't get it perfect. Jumping around the chat again here, Scrappy, I don't see her just letting some foundling of a cult-like sect become the new Mandalore. No, Katie Sackhoff isn't going to... she's obviously locked into the established tradition related to the Darksaber, so that is a little bit of a complicated story arc that's going to have to be undone. She's worked for it for some time, and Din's just popped up. She's not going to be fully enamored with the notion of him claiming it or owning it, or and she doesn't want to just take it off him because that doesn't fit with the significance that she believes it holds.
Yeah. We heard them specifically saying that the Darksaber can't cut through pure Beskar.
Yeah, I'll come back to that because it just reminded me of something. But just looking in the chat again, Scrappy says yes, she was standing at the end. So both Bo-Katan and Cosca Reeves were standing at the end, but they didn't focus on it enough. She was a little bit deeper in the background. Some great female actresses this season, and even in this finale, Katie, Gina, Rosaria, Ming, and Sasha, all in one. Apart from Rosaria, but all in one hit there.
It's interesting that. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying what Taichu says here in chat. It can't be cut through by Beskar, but it looked like it was trying to melt. That was what I was going to actually just say. That Darksaber versus Beskar spear fight was kind of fun. When he was using his gauntlets as shields, they could take the knocks pretty well. But when there was prolonged contact between the Darksaber and the Beskar spear, it was
yeah, I was almost wondering whether it was going to get sort of melted in half at one point, because it looked like
it was obviously absorbing the energy, absorbing the heat. And that may have eventually had implications, unless he's got super protective thermal gloves or whatever, but fortunately it held up, so it was a good fight. There's one or two moves in there that I thought were pretty cool. There's one instance where he kicked the base of the Beskar spear, and in order to flip it around fast and do a high block. There's some cool stunt choreography, some cool fight choreography, which I am always a fan of.
Yeah. The little cameo of the Death Star droid, sort of the Imperial droid walking in the corridor, was fun. Yeah, that was sort of. I didn't actually really think about the fact like he just ejected them into space, and then it's like, oh, they're like droids, because we heard like K2SO was like, I can survive in space.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I'm just like, oh yeah, of course, duh. We saw them use their rocket sort of jetpack power on Tython, so of course, yeah, when they come back in, it's like, oh yeah, they can just all come back.
Yeah.
You wonder whether we're going to see more of them next season, because they are certainly a very formidable fighter. And it's interesting that they sort of reference that this is a follow-on from the original ones, which were from like the old school Battlefront, that are troopers. That he referenced that they got rid of like the human brain.
Phase 3. He said that.
Phase 3.
That's rock solid line with Dark Forces and.
Yeah, where he says, I wrote it down.
It was the last remaining weakness or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Yeah. What were some of my other notes?
Yeah, because so Dark Troopers first turned up in whatchamacallit, Dark Forces, the Kyle Katarn story arc, and back then they had Phase 0, which showed up about a front later, but they had Phase 1, 2, and 3 in the game. And they got obviously heavier duty, so it was interesting that he specifically referred to the Phase 3 Dark Troopers. They were pretty heavy duty by the time they got to that level of the Dark Trooper project. But if you look at the breakdown of the design, there were a couple of elements that do actually hark back to the original Dark Trooper game, the game versions of the Dark Trooper designs, particularly their shoulder pauldrons and the little bunny bits that sort of look like they hold them on. I thought that was cool. What do I just eyeball in chat here? Yeah, R2-D2.
Oh yeah, man!
It's just a punchline there.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Like.
That's the other thing. When the X-wing landed, I noticed that I was looking and I noticed that it didn't have any insignia on the wings. Either that or they were subtle grey or something. But I didn't even bother to see if there was an astromech in the astromech droid slot, and with what colour that might have been. It was a little bit small. So yeah, super cool to see R2-D2 there. Although the biggest question of the show for me is, what were those little things on R2-D2's shoulder?
I didn't notice that, actually.
Yeah, he had two little rivety things poking out of each of his shoulders.
Oh, nuts. Oh, don't worry. I've just, filled my inventory.
Fred 5 standing by. He was a Jedi like his father before him.
Yeah. No, it was just so exciting. I was just like, that silhouette. Saw the dark robe and I thought, could it be, as they just green saber, and all the little hints as he walked along, the lightsaber, the belt buckle, the gloved hand. That's gonna be very, very hard for the people that are trying to spoiler free, I think.
Oh yeah, I mean, I
The
feel really
internet is
bad for
going to
those
be
that aren't
like, yeah. So what are the other notes? I kind of wanted to see the reaction of the other people in the room when Mando took his helmet off.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Hey, there was one.
they kept the focus really tight,
Yeah,
which
they wouldn't do any
I
wide
think fit the
reaction
scene.
shots. Well, because he did it for the benefit of Baby Yoda, and anything else would have been a little bit of a distraction. One thing I did notice this episode, and someone else pointed it out in previous episodes, so I can't claim to have been the first to notice it, but the way Din Djarin acts when his helmet is off, he's acting like he's worn a helmet for 99% of his life. He does that thing where you have to turn your whole head in order to access your peripheral vision.
Yes.
Because if you so
you can't just turn your eyes.
Yeah, so he always, and he was doing it even in this episode. In order to change his direction of his gaze, he was actually rotating his whole head. That's an interesting little.
Yeah, that's a thoughtful detail.
Touch, yeah.
Which does that mean that we're gonna get like plenty of Mando helmet off scenes in the next season? Like, because he's solidly done it now.
Yeah,
like you know, a couple of times
over the can of worms, so to speak.
Yeah.
Jumping around chat a little bit here. Scrappy talking about the one black glove. That was pretty solid. Trademark of Luke. Did Grogu recall R2-D2? Because they're at the temple at the same time. Obviously there's a lot more. I don't know what they're going to do with the Baby Yoda story now. I mean, it's not going to.
That's not exactly. There's a lot of questions left unanswered.
Yeah, so we're going to diverge from that for season 3 for a little while. I assume.
Because it's not like. I mean, we might get some sort of chicken.
And I mean, Luke. So Luke was the intervening Jedi at this point, but there must have been an. Jalari just mentioning there must have been an intervening. There was an intervening Jedi. At the point of Order 66, when Baby Yoda, when Grogu was rescued. So that's another unanswered story arc.
Yeah.
Scrappy thinks Palps saved him. Well, stranger things have happened. Obviously, the dark side players in the game do have an interest in the powerful Jedi.
Yes, because we know that Moff Gideon, whether he was bluffing or not, we can't tell, but he told Mando that they had all the blood that they needed.
Yeah.
So
that's
is that on the
ship?
No,
that's not finished.
Are they taking it somewhere else? Like, we don't know exactly where they were sort of intercepted and how much time has gone, so that blood could have been stored somewhere for safekeeping.
Well, because Dr. Pershing wasn't on Gideon's cruiser, so I don't think the lab, I don't think that is where they're conducting the experiments using Baby Yoda's blood. I don't think so.
I didn't catch what planet they were actually going to at the start. I thought it was fun seeing that sort of TIE variant with its wings pointed straight up.
That was a Mandalorian.
Is that what it was? I was just distracted by the story and everything. I was just like remembering the vehicle with its wings straight up in the shuttle, sitting next to it. There was some fun characters in that cantina. There was a Rodian.
Yep, in the background, Rodian is a bunch of Aquilish, pretty sure.
I'm going to have to go through and watch that again to sort of capture all the detail of all the background characters, because, that was fun. I know they're like not named characters, but seeing very recognizable Star Wars alien species is always kind of fun.
So, Fred Fire is saying, hope Luke trains Baby Yoda to wield the dark saber. Be interesting if he did end up with a either the Darksaber or something inspired by a Darksaber at the point where he chooses to build his own lightsaber. Just
Oh, because that's what he's seen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, I hate having to wait now. I mean, I
Oh,
obviously
I
wanted the story to
know.
build up to this point and answer the questions, but now I've got a huge gap. Hey, what? So they said December 2021 for the Boba
2021
Fett,
for the
didn't
Boba
they?
Fett, yeah.
So they're going to try and jam a few things in before then, maybe.
Yeah, does that mean that
heard-
we're going to get the season of Mando, like, because it tends to be, what is it, October it launches? Oh, well, it has launched for season 1 and 2. I don't know
Yeah,
whether
so
we'll get another
Touches.
season of Mando and have the Boba Fett one kind of kick off a little bit more, like a little bit of a crossover in the first episode.
Yeah. Touch is just noting in chat that I was wondering if there was a bit of recognition between R2 and Baby Yoda from, previous Jedi Temple encounters.
Well, yeah, R2 would have been... he's with Anakin prior to Order 66,
so that's...
Yeah. Whether that's... Yeah, because
not
he was
implausible that they
beeping and
crossed
nobody
paths.
kind of said anything.
Yeah,
So you don't know whether he's basically, verifying that, yep, this is the guy
yeah.
that we're looking for.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point. I didn't fully pick up on that at the time, but yeah, that's quite plausible in terms of timelines.
Oh, I keep running out of space in my inventory.
Yeah, that happens when you're just on autopilot and talking in chat.
What is this deco? Statue of Kelman. Oh, decorations.
Yeah, the ship. I don't know what planet it was that the Boba and Din arrived on to meet Katie Stackhoff and Sasha Banks. I can't remember if we had enough information from that. It was an interesting planet. I thought those sort of smokestacks and so forth. But yeah, no, that was definitely a Mandalorian fighter that we'd previously seen in Clone Wars in a landing position with its wings upright. So I guess that was what Katie Sackhoff was flying at the time.
Yeah.
Don't know if I'll try and pronounce it, but that particular Mandalorian fighter is known as a Kamiro class, KOM''RK class fighter. No captions on the planet, so that we don't have any solid information on what planet. I don't think there was enough, clues to really point us in a direction. But I mean, it's incidental at this point. It's just interesting.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to going back and taking a look at a few things. Trying to just scan my eyeballs around Jabba's palace in the closing credits as well. We had Wiki species
hearing
in there.
Fortuna saying the same sort of Huttese that we've heard in the Star Wars films before, it was like they didn't even subtitle it. It was just sort of to enjoy hearing him say those things. It was fun.
Yeah, David West has just joined the chat. His greetings, all still buzzing, and he's got dust in his eyes from...
That was an emotional scene.
I'm not crying, you're crying. Scrappy thinks that it was Mon Cala. Again, they met just like in the first episode. They met.
Yeah.
What else did you make down on your notes there?
Oh,
that was something. It was a brief moment, but just talking about species in the background, we saw the RA7 or RA series protocol droid.
Yeah, I called him the Death Star droid because that's what I was
going to say Death Star droid.
Yeah, the shiny one.
I love seeing them.
At one point somebody mentioned that something had gotten through the ray shields, which is just kind of fun because that always just makes me think of that scene in Episode 3. And Luke using the Force to crush the droid. That was really quite fun.
Just a little bit back, Freddie talking in chat about this is a Luke. We wanted to see. He was he was really wielding his powers. Obviously not against sentient beings, so he can get away with a little bit more aggression, perhaps, or what appears to be aggression.
Yeah, it was like the light side version of the Rogue One Vader hallway scene.
But
it's droid, so you can sort of unleash, but it's not like.
I mean, it makes sense. You don't just fight with one weapon. You use everything you got on hand. So you do the squishing and the crushing and the throwing and the. David was talking about the helmet scene, just beautiful. The love between the two.
Oh, sorry, didn't want to interrupt you. The bit where the the Dark Trooper was mashing his helmet against the door, that had me freaking. I was like trying to look at it to see if they were like denting his helmet.
The helmet was holding up. Yeah, you get knocked about a bit.
Yeah. You'd still feel the knocks inside that helmet, but that was the kind of proving just how sort of strong and indestructible Beskar is.
I was not audibly, but I was shouting at my screen. I mean, that was the time you needed to get the freaking Beskar spear out and jam it somewhere vulnerable. Tochu in chat, for an old man, Boba got some moves. He kept up with that. He kept up with Mando. No, Luke did no lightning. Yeah, he was using his. Luke was using his gloved hand, so his cybernetic hand. No force lightning. Freddie thought the helmet might crack as well. Yeah, maybe just a little, but because most of it's Beskar.
There's a visor in the middle. I don't know what that's
just
made
because
out
it's
of.
indestructible doesn't mean it's not going to flex a little under stress. In which case, whatever your actual visor's made of is going to be vulnerable. Just simple physics. But it was quite a cool scene. It was quite a cool representation of why Beskar armor is valued.
Yeah. You can imagine if they made like the Dark Troopers out of something like that.
Didn't need to get a Beskar grapple cord. I thought exactly that as well, because that didn't even phase Moff Gideon for more than a fraction of a second when he got that wrapped around him.
That was fun to see them finally go toe to toe, though.
Yeah, for sure. And David and Chess, when they dumped the Dark Troopers, they should have just put the foot on the accelerator and left them behind instead of just sitting around waiting for them to come back.
Come back here. The TIE Fighter launching tube scene. That's what it was.
Yeah, I was just waiting for them to do the Battlestar Galactica Viper launch tube sound of it.
That was cool though, and them sort of crashing the shuttle down in the tube.
It was cool, but man, it's a brave design for getting your, critical starships out of the hangar, throwing them down an extremely narrow artificial chasm just for the heck of it.
I was always fascinated playing some of those old, Jedi Outcast, Jedi Academy games and stuff like that. We always saw the big TIE fighters up in the racks in hangars and things like that when you're running around killing stormtroopers, and always just wanted to see how they would launch and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the kid in me is like excited to see that sort of sequence.
Yeah, it was established pretty early on that TIE fighters sort of hung in the hangar bays like that, and I've always thought that was a cool idea. I always kind of like that.
And seeing like the little pilots sort of in the cockpit windows.
Yeah, I like those cockpit scenes for the TIE fighter pilots. What does Stormtrooper armor actually do? It barely protects at all. Obviously, there's a pretty high body count in terms of Imperial Stormtroopers this whole season. I didn't quite pick it up as much in this episode, but I did notice in some of the other episodes, like the Outdoor one, in the episode The Tragedy, whenever a Stormtrooper got shot, the squibs or the special effects were being applied mostly to joints in the armor. They were implying that whoever was doing the shooting was pretty precise in their marksmanship and wasn't just, going for the solid armor bits. They're going for the weaknesses in the armor. But obviously Stormtroopers are cannon fodder, and they succeed or function based on sheer numbers rather than.
Yeah, a little
I mean,
bit
TIE
like
fighters don't have
like the
shields.
battle droids from
Yeah.
the Clone Wars. That sort of, yeah, just throw everything at the problem.
Yeah, Stormtrooper armor gives you a -5 to your aim roll.
Sorry, I'm just taking a break from Tatooine to put some stuff in my bays because I am running out of room. And then I'll be back shortly. I think it's going to have a lot of the all the sort of conspiracy theorists out trying to figure out what the next storylines are going to be, what this means for Grogu and his sort of timelines.
Well, it's going to get really big. With all the, I mean, we've got Boba Fett now, presumably. I mean, that's going to be immediately post season 2, so it's going to be going on in the same timelines as season 3 and onwards of the Mandalorian, but just not necessarily intersecting with it. Ahsoka's going to intersect with it. Rangers of the New Republic's going to intersect with it. There's a lot going on in the same timelines. Who knows if they'll bring back the CG Luke again in the Ahsoka story. But and then on top of all that, we've got, Cassian Andor to look forward to.
Yeah.
So playing around in a different sandbox. Yeah, Boba Fett talking about the Slave One and the effectiveness of the Slave One. The cannons, front-facing and rear-facing cannons.
I like how Boba was kind of like toying with the Imperials, and as soon as the shuttle was saying, he just turned around and just boom, just took them straight out.
Yeah.
It's still fun to see his clean paint.
Yep. Not everyone's favourite thing, but I don't hate it. As somebody said, people in Star Wars don't know they're in Star Wars. Not everything has to be weathered to look cool. If you wanted to...
Yeah. Well, they take pride in their armour.
If you wanted to give it a fresh coat of paint, that's how it would look. It would look like a mint in box toy a little bit. That's just inevitable, I guess.
The spread of Rakul plague on Tatooine has caused the Ministry of Logistics to place Masida Spaceport under no tolerance lockdown protocol.
Fred 5 wants to make sure Grogu doesn't get taken out by Kylo. I think that would be an unsatisfactory ending to his story arc. Why was Gideon scared of the approaching Jedi? He was, wasn't he? He knew that he seemed to be aware that it wasn't just simple, straightforward reinforcements. That it was something pretty notable that he had to face. I knew that was a Jedi. Did he see the monitors, the security monitors? All I'm not 100% sure if he saw Luke cutting down all the Death Troopers.
Yeah. And honestly, I can't really imagine too many other characters. Like, I know that there was...
Yeah, you saw the monitors, cool.
Like, once you saw what one Dark Trooper could do, like, I know Jedi are Jedi, but I feel like they did a pretty good job of setting up how formidable they were as a foe, so it made it all the more sort of awesome that it was Luke that would come.
Yeah,
because he's somebody that's like of that sort of caliber that could take them out and not really look like he's breaking too much of a sweat.
Yeah, so a few people in chat just pointing out that Gideon did see the monitors, and so he recognised an actual Jedi wielding an actual lightsaber, and that's what gave him the heebie-jeebies, and he was on the verge of committing suicide potentially, just because he didn't want to face him, and then Cara Dune knocked him out instead.
Yeah, Cara, she's obviously got some history, but then Bo-Katan was like, he's mine. Obviously, she wanted to kill him because if he had the Darksaber, then she would get it. But is she still going to want to kill him just for sort of revenge? I mean, they're going to have to kick off with that scene, like, straight away for season 3. They're now in possession of an Imperial light cruiser.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so I mean that's potentially where season 3 is heading, for a wrapping up of the Mandalorian, the planet Mandaloria and its moon Concordia, wrapping up that story arc. And you know, that would be interesting. So, like I say, get that all straightened out in terms of canon and Mandalorian lore. Season 3, Thrawn Star Destroyer jumps in. Yeah, Scrappy, we're just... I mean, yeah, so that is the unanswered question. Is Thrawn's story going to be continued in The Mandalorian or in
a spin-off?
In Ahsoka's spin-off, yeah. It was funny just talking about spin-offs, though. As soon, about 25 seconds into the post-credit scene, it was starting to feel like the classic setup for a spin-off series. And then yeah, when we saw Boba Fett's silhouette coming down the stairs behind Fennec Shand, it was pretty clear. But I was still almost surprised to see them sort of give it a title and a date in the way they did.
Yeah. Considering the sort of the subtlety of how they brought back Boba Fett, you know, they just casually showed his face and then didn't say anything and just kind of like, oh yeah, and then like didn't touch on that for several episodes. I thought they might sort of just like show us that thing at the end and then be like, oh, and then like announce it. But yeah, title and everything. That's just really exciting.
Yeah, I'm stoked. I mean, I
hope that real passionate Boba Fett fans are just really excited by this.
Yeah, so Freddie's comment, Bob, gangsters. It is an interesting move. Like I said earlier on, it's not quite the direction I thought they would take Boba Fett's story. Sort of getting him into that sort of crime lord arc, whether he's out to get some level of revenge about people that have wronged him, or whether he truly wants to, operate on that side of the law for whatever reasons. I think that's an interesting direction to take it that I wasn't fully expecting. I was expecting him, some sort of other adventures and encounters without necessarily a heavy overarching story beyond filling in the gaps post Sarlacc. But that's a pretty strong direction that they're casting him.
As a side note, I want to see the side-by-side screenshots of the two Jabba's palaces. I'm sure they know that people would do that and have gone to great detail. So
you think an exterior or interior?
Oh, both.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just fun seeing, because I noticed that Boba Fett stood like on the grate.
Yeah, when the Twi'lek.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
Was trying to escape and she was getting close. I was wondering if they still had a replacement Rancor down there or something. But yeah, as Larry says, it was cool that Fennec let the Twi'lek go free.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that does. Yeah, and she kind of. She straight up seemed to know what Boba's intention was. She took position beside the dais throne. That implies that she's going to be in that series on an ongoing basis.
Well, Shield. And talking of the actress, I think Shield has finished.
Shield.
I think. But like that's obviously like Disney keeping her in the family.
Yeah.
One major series finished. Let's just slot you in here. I mean, she goes way back, being the original voice actress for Mulan. So it's fun seeing her getting such a fun role because she has such a good history with action scenes.
Yeah, no denying that. Yeah, people have been taking it easy. Been lording up the crime lord life. I can't remember if there was any, there was the old expanded universe books, the Tales from Jabba's Palace and so forth, where at that point we knew that he survived the explosion of the sail barge, I think initially. I'm not sure to what extent this all contradicts the other aspects of that. I'll have to go back and take a look at that story. But yeah, obviously he's taken over what he can. I don't know if he's necessarily going to be as charismatic as Jabba the Hutt as a crime lord, but obviously as Jabba's major domo, he knew the ins and outs of the biz.
Yeah, and obviously has done well for himself to keep a position of power.
Barry's joined chat. He's got his mouth wide open by the sound of things. Yep, big story there. Johnny Cash. I was reading that Disney might do an Avengers blueprint where they have separate stories for the individuals and do an ensemble at the end where Ahsoka, Mando, Boba converge for an end of season finale.
That's an interesting concept, yeah.
It almost
because
does sound
obviously
like that.
the MCU has kind of gotten, for whether you enjoy the movies or not, it has a reputation for very complicated intersecting stories that all play together but work very well on their own. Because classically Star Wars has just been, the trilogy of movies.
Yeah, Scrappy's pointing out there, one of the guys, you mean, the guy who worked on Iron Man. Well, yeah, Scrappy's just saying they had one of the guys from Marvel working on The Mandalorian. Obviously, Paul Peyton Reed's technically from Marvel because he directed Ant-Man. And yeah, of course, the guy who worked on Iron Man.
Favreau.
Yeah. He's obviously, got some degree of familiarity with that sort of story intertwining between different media and different channels.
Yeah, because Iron Man certainly had the tricky
task
task of setting the whole thing off.
The MCU, basically. And so like I say, we see in chat there, Barry's just joined in. So yeah, you might have missed out on a few bits and pieces. We've been talking about throwing anything up you want to talk about, Barry.
Yeah.
Happy to go back.
I love hearing what other people's favorite sort of Yahoo, that's so amazing moments or things that really made you sort of drop your mouth open in shock or
was it Luke? Was it Bib Fortuna? Or was it R2D2?
Yeah.
Was it the Death Star droid?
I like those touches. Ever since those first little preview pictures of like the rifle from the holiday special cartoon, and you're like, they've lived up to that sort of tease that they're going to keep including things that people recognize from all Star Wars sources.
Hey Barry, did you see the little protrusions on R2D2's shoulders? He had two on each side.
Have they fixed his like rocket?
I don't know. They weren't big enough to really be significant. It was just a little bit front facing on the outer horseshoe of each of his shoulders.
There's so much detail. I'm gonna have to go back and like watch that one a few times, and I want to like appreciate Luke's sort of corridor fighting as well. They did pretty well to do all that and keep his face hidden.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was a fun scene. I don't even know how. I think I was holding my breath for a lot of it. From the minute we saw the dark cloaked figure till the minute we got glimpses of his belt and his boot and then his glove.
Well, also because they've teased us with a few X-wings on and off through this series, and every time it's been. Like a New Republic officer in the classic X-Wing gear.
It says, "Oh, goody," and it's a single X-Wing. That's going to happen.
Yeah, like she's obviously like thinking like, "Oh yes, the New Republic's come to help us with one dude." Yeah. So yeah, it was like not a fake out, because, you know, people know that Luke would probably have access to one, and it's his sort of preferred method of transport. But interesting for perhaps the fans that have joined the sort of Star Wars fandom with Mandalorian may not have immediately recognized the connection there.
Yeah. So yeah, just as you're saying earlier, really want to go back and just watch that whole corridor fight scene. I did too, because I think I was, again, like I say, just a bit busy holding my breath, but kind of part of me was saying, you know, this has got to be Luke. Every single thing we've seen on screen matches up with it. They wouldn't dare be so cruel as to have the face reveal, and it's just some random.
Oh man, I didn't know how they'd do it. I was like, are they gonna like just have somebody like, you know, is it gonna be the rumored Sebastian Stan? Is it gonna be a lookalike? Is it gonna be, you know, the Carrie Tarkin sort of CG over a very good lookalike, sort of to get the face structure? I mean, pretty exciting for whoever got to do the stunts.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, lightsabers have a reputation in getting to embody one of the most well-known wielders of that.
Yeah, I didn't quite go all the way through all the small print of the credits beyond seeing Mark Hamill's name to see who might have been behind the scenes. Johnny Cage's best part was obviously Luke, but the Mando fight at the beginning too. Yeah, I think we touched on that just a little bit before. I quite liked the way they used everything they had at their disposal, including jetpacks to
the way
really
that they sort of faked out the
really
troopers.
Oh no! Yeah, they did that. But even before that, I liked the Cosca Reeves and Din Djarin fight. The way they just sort of activate bursts of their jetpacks to sort of give them little acrobatic tweaks to their fighting.
Yeah. I mean, when they announced that this series was going to follow a new character, I was like, okay, they're playing it safe. They're going to not mess with any of the established characters. You know, we're going to see maybe some stormtroopers, you know, once we started seeing some teaser pictures and things like that. But it has way gotten involved with established stories in a way I never thought they would. I thought this was going to be like the, you know, the Tales of Jabba's Palace books or things like that, where they just sort of tell stories of, you know, characters on the fringe that aren't going to directly connect to the movies.
Yeah. Jalari just talking about some of the Din Djarin's Beskar spear choreography. One thing that it really struck me as we went along is how versatile his fighting style was. That's under some circumstances, you might consider that to be a little bit haphazard. If someone's, you know, not really consistent in their fighting style on screen, it can be a little bit jarring in terms of the believability of the character. But in this instance, I thought it was really quite interesting and quite cool that he
used everything. He used his little
hand to hand, you know.
Was it whistling birds?
An array of
his.
Yeah,
we saw Boba use the grapple, didn't we? We didn't see the cable, I think, or was it Jin? But we saw
he wrapped Moff Gideon and Cutter.
Yeah, so we saw him use just about everything because he used the flamethrower. Yeah, they sort of gave him a let's use everything on that you can do.
Yeah, including yet another round of the extremely rare whistling birds.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of funny, eh? Use them sparingly and then they just like unloads the whole thing. He's obviously found a new supplier. I don't think there were anything more in my notes.
Not from this time around.
Yeah. So yeah, Grogu's sort of points in this one were minimal, but I thought it was interesting the way he was sort of seemed to be using the Force when he was touching the screen.
Yeah, well, I don't know if he's trying to reach out with the Force or if it was just sort of recognition and you know, just a sort of a bit more of a juvenile reaction, but
we don't know how much, like when he was using the Force on Tython, whether it was sort of a two-way communication, that he reached out in the Force and Luke would have met that connection.
Yeah,
so they
well,
sort of he recognized.
It wasn't all his own
sort of-
power. It was certainly amplified and guided. That's the whole
Yeah.
setup that they, the dais and whatever it was, configured for. But yeah, whether or not he's trying to communicate with Luke as he's approaching, or whether he just straight up recognized them, or just straight up recognized a Jedi.
Yeah, because he hadn't. I mean, well, he'd seen Ahsoka.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I wanted it to be Luke, but I just didn't know if they'd go there, be that bold and bring him in. And
Yep.
I'm so glad they did. And I hope Mark Hamill is really happy with that. Obviously he might not have gotten to perform on set, but his close connection to the character.
Yeah. Looking again at chat, Barry says, talking about from the books, the old expanded universe books, talking about Luke saving Jason from the Vong. We actually got to see a bit more of a representation of that extent of the power on screen this time around during his corridor scenes, and yep, no denying that was good to see. Freddy's, yeah, we touched on that, earlier on, that the CGI was, maybe 99% perfect, but just a little bit off in terms of lip sync movements.
What they were maybe, well, I didn't notice that. I was just thinking they've kind of tried to make him look older than when we would have last seen him.
But as I said right at the start of the chat, the significance of having that come into play in terms of the storytelling means I'm 100% happy with that, regardless of any minor imperfections in the actual rendering.
Yeah, we knew that if they were going to do Luke, they were going to have to CG him. Well, I don't think the fans would have taken a recast of Luke. Like, I know some people had their quibbles about Solo casting, but the age gap was so big that we don't have a already seen young Han Solo face, but we know what Luke looks like in this age.
Yeah.
So you can't just use somebody else. It has to be Hamill's face.
Yep. Johnny Cage is jumping off to go watch it again. Okay, take it easy. Thanks for coming into the chat. Great to see you again, and have a good break, have a holidays if you got time off from work, and go back and watch that episode and go back and watch that season.
It's kind of a fun Christmas present for Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
This whole sort of season. I do have to wonder, people that aren't able to watch it when it comes out, the official Star Wars channels, how long are they going to sit on that before they start talking about what's in this episode?
Man,
that's going to be a really tricky balance.
Because Mark Hamill was way active on Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't know how
People are going to be
stay on
tweeting
this through the weekend.
Yeah, like...
looking again at chat. Freddie say, I mean, the CG wasn't perfect, but it sounds like you're happy enough just to see the result that showed up and played that role of being the one that took Grogu away for training. But Barry, when you saw the X-Men, you reckon you're pretty confident it was Luke at that point when you saw him?
I was just kind of thinking, like, they're pretty good at giving us shocks. I wasn't sure how much I could sort of foresee where they were going to go, or whether they would give us like what kind of surprise they're going to give the fans.
So there wasn't, the last episode, The Believer, there wasn't a huge lot of in-your-face shocks. There was some cool action and some cool acting. The one before that was A Tragedy, which had some, punch you in the guts type shocks. This one did have some pretty, powerful shock moments. I forgot where I was really sort of going with that, as well as see. Oh no, that's where I was going. As well as seeing Luke, the edge of the seat, waiting to see whether or not it was going to happen or not, was the taking off the helmet again moment. I thought that once
yeah.
per season was almost enough for balance and symmetry. This second time round is even more significant in terms of where he's heading and where how he might be appearing in subsequent seasons.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that was one of the other big shocks that we talked about it briefly, but I consider that to be quite a big deal. It felt like quite a big deal to me at the moment that it happened.
Yeah. I think it was almost inevitable because you knew that he had taken his helmet off for the chance to save him. So, yeah, saying goodbye. Obviously, how much Grogu means to him.
Yeah.
He, you could see in those season episode 1 with the village woman.
Yeah.
He doesn't stop her from reaching out straight away, and he's pondering whether there would be something he would love enough to sort of put that a belief aside. And obviously now that he's interacted with other Mandalorians and knows that that's not necessarily the way for everyone, that he's decided that yes, Grogu is someone or something that he loves enough that he would risk, shunning or whatever, to have that touching goodbye.
Yeah, so Freddie's just agreeing that his room got a little bit dusty when Din took his helmet off that time, and Barry thinks it was the right time to storytelling for that to happen by the sound of things.
Well, I think it certainly frees up the storytelling a little bit for subsequent adventures. If he can take his helmet off, and then we might get a little bit more humor and things like that, because we've already played a couple of the times when he's trying to sip soup under his helmet and things like that. So
if he is working and somehow with Katie Sackhoff and co in the next season, and they don't wear their helmets a lot, then that will offer up opportunities for a lot more interaction and a different style of acting. That'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I am reminded of when you were talking about season 1 when he didn't take his helmet off, and it was episode 3 or whatever with the on the planet with the walkers and the ATSTs and the raiders. This just reminds me of a funny meme from way back then where someone's re-edited that scene and they show it just in a series of panels. They show her taking the helmet off, and there's just another smaller Mandalorian helmet on underneath it. And don't mess with Boba Fett, not just a clone.
Yeah, I liked that.
He didn't seem to like it. He didn't seem to like being the clone, did he?
Yeah, that sort of tension I thought was interesting, because he is in an interesting predicament with his relationship to other Mandalorians. It would be fun if we saw maybe one of the other classic ESB bounty hunters in his season. We don't necessarily know the final demises of all of those characters. All the heroes, would they bring in Dengar? Would they bring in original IG-88? Because they've now got a good sort of model for how he would fight and move.
Well, in plenty of the other previous expanded universe backstory type fill-in stuff, the bounty hunters did cross paths many times and know each other. So maybe we'll cross our fingers.
That could be fun.
So Freddie's just saying in a year that's been otherwise pretty much a write-off. This was a great way to wrap up the year and feel like there's been something worthwhile.
So close to Christmas, it's it feels rather fitting.
Yeah.
Even though it's very didn't exactly wrap up storylines.
No.
We rescued Grogu, but that's not really the end of his journey.
Yeah. So we got a little bit of time to wait, but in this time slot next week we'll have the behind the scenes.
Has that been confirmed?
Yeah, pretty sure we roll straight into it. No, I'm 98%, 97% sure that we roll straight into the gallery, the Mandalorian gallery, and there's 8 chapters of that.
Yeah.
That'll take us through into Feb, and we may be starting to hear something solid about other bits and pieces that may be coming our way back by then. Talking about other bounty hunters, Scrappy's just reminding us about Cad Bane. It'll be kind of interesting to see as in live action at some point.
Hmm.
Yeah, all this talk about Boba Fett, don't want to drag things down, but yeah, sad news about Jeremy Bulloch.
Oh, today of all days, when they literally announced a series.
Yeah.
It's almost like passing the torch. Like he sort of, originated the character, and now Tim is sort of taking on the mantle and carrying on for him.
So guys and in some instances girls from the original trilogy getting to the age where we're going to see this sort of thing happening. But yeah, I'm so glad at least that a lot of them did make it to New Zealand at some point in their life. It was 2001 that Jeremy Bulloch made it to an Armageddon. 2001? Yeah, Armageddon in Auckland. I don't know if many others in chat managed to see him way back then. He had... Yeah, go ahead.
I'm glad we got to see him on stage at Celebration 3, I think it was, when they sort of got all the Fets on stage. That was neat to see them all together.
He did. I mean, he interacted with the fandom a lot, and the 501st as well. He had his own set of armor.
Yeah, as a full 501st member. It's always fun when the actors are not just involved with the fandom, but really invested in their character to the point of, getting the costume.
Yeah. So as Freddie says, at least the Fett legacy lives on. Super stoked that Tim's taken on that mantle.
Yeah.
And just reminding us of other coolness, seeing Hayden Christensen as Darth Vader in some shape or form.
Yeah.
Something super cool to look forward to.
Oh, the description of the footage that aired at the Investor Day.
So they cut away. So.
Oh man, that is such a tease, not showing us. They know the fans want it. And I was just like, I haven't found the footage anywhere, but at least there's descriptions. But it sounds like Ewan and Hayden are super excited. And something like the showdown of the century. And I'm kind of hoping, complete sidetrack from Mando chat, but having Hayden, it would be awesome if we got like a little glimpse of scarred Anakin face under the Vader helmet.
I think there's a reasonable chance of that, and I'm quite looking forward to that.
But yeah. I think it'd be fun to see what Pedro can do with the character with more helmet off time. Obviously the show is sort of riding on his character, and everyone wants, to be able to sort of excise their full acting potential with facial expressions and nuances and things like that. So there could be some really fun moments that they can introduce, and whether that will come about with sort of integrating with more of the other Mandalorians. Are we going to see more of the different sort of clans? They keep making mention of Mandalore, the planet, and whether that's where the story is going to go. Yes. Introducing the Darksaber in Season 1 is where it's going to sort of head to sort of reunite the clans and have sort of restore Mandalore to the Mandalorians. Yeah.
Well, one way or another, we've got a huge smorgasbord of pretty cool material coming our way from the whole team.
I have to wonder, is there more story, like a book or a series or parts within an existing series that we're going to find out more about Luke and Grogu.
Yeah.
Like, I know it'd be okay if that's the last we ever saw, but that's one heck of a tease. They just leave us with that to sort of just imagine what happened in the future.
Yeah, well, inevitably if this can get picked up in live action, it can.
I know that probably cost them a heck of a bit to do the CG on the face work.
Yeah.
Because that's why I was not at all surprised when they announced an Ahsoka series. I figured that they had made the small adjustments to sort of adapt her Montreal to be a bit more manageable for stunts, so they're not having to like CG her face in every single shot of the lead actress, and safety during wirework stunts and things like that. So you have to wonder whether they've got the, I guess they're teasing to see if they've got the budget to do more scenes with a fully CG'd Mark Hamill face, because I mean, we could see a shift from Lucasfilm if they're not going to give us full box office movies. Then they might put more budget into the series, and we'll see more CG from here on in, because these would have been filmed at a time where people were maybe not so sure about whether movies would be back on track soon.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Investor Day has made it pretty clear they're putting a lot of eggs into the streaming basket, with a lot of series announced versus movies. Considering back when they took it over, they said we were going to get a movie a year, and that's certainly changed.
Yep.
I'm not sure too many people
are
fussed one way or the other. You know, Star Wars content, live action.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a.
They started with
a dream back in the Rick McCallum age, where everyone was like, okay, CG can do stuff now. Let's make live action series, and it just seemed to be always just out of reach back then. And
I think the direction they're heading, the timelines that they're operating in now is it's a bit of a response to the success they've had with the Mandalorian, and I think it'd be unreasonable to try and deny that, but it's quite cool the way they sort of are interweaving a lot of different bits and pieces, and they are going to stretch the boundaries in a few different directions.
I mean, we've got characters from the prequel era and the OT completely mixing within the same room.
And the Clone Wars, and obviously that's in between those, and
because we've essentially got Boba from Episode 2, the Bo-Katan from the Clone Wars, so prequel era, and then having Luke in the same room was really quite epic to see that sort of all bringing things together. It's almost a shame that Galaxy's Edge is so centered around a specific point in time.
Yeah.
You do wonder if they're going to like shoehorn the Mando in there because of how popular he's been.
Yeah.
They're like, no, he's still alive.
Yeah.
He's just a bit older, but he's still good.
Yeah, well, they can still put other characters from different timelines in other parts of the park, just not necessarily in Galaxy's Edge, because that is a little bit locked into a story arc.
So what merch might we see from this episode, eh? All the Luke Skywalker merch. Because we're seeing a lot of Grogu, Mando, to a certain extent, Moff Gideon and Cara Dune. I'm sure Funko will be announcing like a Luke pop soon,
if
Luke
anyone's
holding Grogu.
Oh boy. Yeah, if
That would
anyone's
be
going to
cute.
fill in the gaps, it'll be Funko. They tend to do not just every character, but every pose that that character
Yeah.
paused on briefly.
But yeah. It's Star Wars content like that just makes me smile, and I just want to watch
What's
it.
that? The Luke and Grogu moment.
Well, just the whole episode.
Yeah.
Even though there's so much left to be resolved, and who knows, this thing could end up being a 10 series, story.
Well, they're no longer
That-
locked into having to sort out what's going to happen with Baby Yoda. So that could imply that
Yeah,
it's going to go
he's
on
a lot more
bit
free.
longer.
As soon as they started telling him, like, okay, your quest to find it, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, what happens
Because
when
he
that's
can't.
done?
There's only so many ways that you can get him into peril with something like Grogu that's not always exactly the most capable of defending himself.
Nah, those stories could potentially get a little repetitive. Hasbro to re-release Jedi Luke again. I mean, what could they? They could give him, put him in a box set with a Dark Trooper.
Dark Trooper bits. Yeah, I'm hoping we do see merch of the Dark Troopers.
Oh, we've got it.
Hot Toys, Black Series.
Well, that's it.
They could be fun. Because they'd army build them. And they
Hot
just have
Toys
one
is-
Luke in the middle of it.
Hot Toys Sideshow and Hot Toys are almost doing every character along the way as well.
Yeah.
Sideshow with their premium format, Hot Toys with their. I mean, I'm really surprised at how many premium formats are coming out of the Mandalorian with Moff
Oh,
Gideon
they're
as well as
epic,
Cara
those.
Dune and
Yeah.
Did you go back and watch it, Barry? He's just talking about the things on Archie's shoulders.
Yeah, there's so many details.
So you're on Dromund Kaas. You almost wrapped it up, have you?
I've done 2 out of 5. Working
Okay.
on my 3rd. So yeah, I can stop whenever we want to wrap up.
What are we at now? Might be almost time to see if we can squeeze in another viewing before it gets too late. Finish this one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we went over
it's-
all our favourite main sort of
Yeah,
points,
look, I've really-
and obviously the speculation that's going to come with an episode ending as open as that. There's going to be so much speculation. All the podcasts are going to be theorising
Yeah.
and trying to make the predictions and see who's going to get it right.
Yeah. Well, I've really enjoyed doing these chat sessions straight after the episode. It's really been quite. I wish we'd thought of it a little bit earlier. I've been doing it since halfway through this season, but I really enjoyed being able to.
Oh yeah, just wanting
unleash on all the
to.
detail with everybody.
Yeah, I mean, we just found ourselves just sitting there for ages after the episode, just kind of digesting it and going through and talking about our favourite things.
And we kind of had to
I
do the
thought
no
other
spoiler.
people must be feeling like this too, because, yeah, if you're a good fan, then you wouldn't be spoiling it for others by sort of wanting to share your enthusiasm on social media, which I fully understand, but I think a huge part of these is watching it as it happens and finding out those major plot points by watching it yourself.
Yeah. So like I said, I think it's been super cool being able to have these sort of conversations, and really appreciate everyone jumping in and joining in, whether you're local or coming in from another part of the globe. It's been super fun to have everyone in chat, and we really appreciate it. Barry's just been taking a look at those details on RTDD that I keep talking about because they nag me. He said they actually disappear in some shots and then reappear again. We may see Disney Plus clean them up like they did infamous Jeans guy
Jeans guy.
in a later release.
Yeah.
So if we do in fact have, let me just check something here. Second season of the Mandalorian Gallery premieres on December the 25th. So yes, StarWars.com confirms that the behind-the-scenes The Mandalorian.
Is that 1 week from today?
Yep. So
Cool.
well, 25th, Christmas Day. Who cares? That's more important. New hour-long making of season 2 special.
Cool.
I think we'll probably jump on and do a live stream after that in this same time slot anyway. Just talk about what might have shown up in that.
Oh, and I think there'll be possibly insights and interesting sort of things that we wouldn't have noticed. By that point, we will have been able to sort of watch this whole season 2 again.
Yeah.
And sort of get and then it's like watching, you know, so many seasons. You get to the end and you're like, okay, I can see the story beats and where this was leading because we've finally got the final episode. So you can sort of go back and you watch it with a slightly different lens, knowing where the story ends up.
Yeah. So, I like I say, I've enjoyed these conversations. So I think we'll try and keep them ticking over for the next little while and talk about the behind-the-scenes stuff for the next little while in the same time slot, and then talk about other Star Wars news that's coming our way or whatever.
Yeah.
Star Wars
I'm sure
news
there'll
and
be
updates people want to talk about.
a post on StarWars.com, if there isn't already, about the announced series.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So we'll get into that next time around.
I mean, that is such a significant link for Star Wars in New Zealand. It's just really exciting. Now they just have to get him to turn up to Armageddon so we can all
Well,
celebrate this new edition.
I take it he's out of the country though.
Yes,
Well,
he's going to be in
well,
LA.
I guess this was filming a little while. We don't know when he'll have to start filming again for his own series, but it's going to have to be soon in the new year to
Yeah.
get that out by December. If they haven't already, they may well have. They may well have been doing some stuff in parallel because overlapping resources and so forth.
I still think it'd be interesting if they brought him back to play a clone in the Ahsoka
well.
series. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
that would be interesting. Oh, what an ending. That was quite the ride.
So, where are you at now?
I'm working on this, but I can just park my girl and wrap it up.
Yeah. Alright, like I say, it's been super cool having everyone in chat. Coming up on midnight local time. Probably going to be buzzing for a little while about everything we've seen and everything we see when we watch it again.
Yeah.
But we'll probably wrap things up here for now and say goodnight and say thanks all for signing in.
Yep. It's been super fun to just sort of get all that excitement off your chest and talk with other people.
Yeah. Alrighty. So we'll try and dial in again next week. It will be Christmas Day, but I think by later in the evening we may well go online anyway. We'll post on social media, but if you're following us on Twitch, you'll get notifications when we go live. So thank you all for signing in. I'll see you next time, and in the meantime, take it easy.
And may the force be with you.